we're going to continue on and spend some more time in section 27 because it's such an important section. And there's real treasure in here. One of the key ideas in section 27 is the law of association of sensations. And another key idea is that the education of the horse is a long-term curriculum, and it is more involved than the current horse world is acknowledging. That's the most polite way that I can say it right now. But I'm just going to reiterate what the law of association of sensations, that idea is. It came through the French cavalry at Saumur. It had always been used, but it was sort of a coined doctrine through Saumur and a doctor, I think he was an anthropologist or something, who worked with the education of human children. His name was Dr. Bon, B-O-N. And this is what the law of association of sensations is from section 27. When impressions have been produced simultaneously or have immediately succeeded each other, it is thereafter sufficient that one of the impressions can be presented to the senses in order for the others also to be called to mind. So this is talking about the student, whether the horse is a child or a horse, that and horse's memory is our greatest asset in its education, that he will be reminded of all the preceding information that he has when the sensations, and sensations can be sight, hearing, touch, and even taste successively. They will remind him of associated events or other sensations and their meanings. And the first example that they cite in this section is that the sight alone of the whip will remind the horse, oh, that the whip, it means the same thing as a cluck of the tongue. It means go. And then later on, it's going to mean the leg at the girth will be associated in that whole thread, that whole idea. So leg at the girth means go, cluck means go, the sight of the whip means go. And so the horse has a language of synonyms of things that he can associate. And this is not being highlighted enough in the education of horses or riders these days. It's much more like a rider's feel is more about imparting a sensation to the horse to cause the horse to make the correct association. It's not feel like intuition or I love you, baby. I mean, we do love them, but it's much more deliberate. And when the language of equitation is considered to be as a language, and when we think about how we teach a human a new language, it is identical with the horses. We teach them language just as a human learns language, and they are definitely smart enough to do this. So now here's another important point I want to highlight that can be gleaned from this section. So I'm just going to assume you accept that this is a language, the education is a language, and it can be taught to the horse as a language is, as an education, to make the horse able to communicate. It's just a language of sensations instead of a language of a verbal language, although he can learn words too. But this other point is very important and is absent these days in the horse world's mind. This is a curriculum that is successive, and it's systematic and successive. And an early lesson is preparing a future lesson. And here's an example that the foal is haltered early on and learns to lead alongside the mother, and then learns to lead on his own. So he learns leading very early on. This prepares him for a similar action of being led, the traction of being led in his early lesson with the lunge line. And then on the lunge line, he's hearing the click of the tongue. He learns the lesson that the sight of the whip, even coming off the ground. Oh, that means I go. So all of these early lessons prepare the future lessons, just as a young human student learns to count and then learns simple addition and subtraction. Then next year, they learn multiplication, then division. From these skill sets, algebra then becomes possible, and geometry. And it's the same with a horse. And these days, the education isn't getting out of kindergarten. The colt starting idea and this idea of training of that, oh, it's all feeling and relationship. No, it is an education. And there are the horses these days in the zeitgeist, in most of the horse world, are illiterate, and so are the riders. So this is a language, and it is a language of sensations, and it is a curriculum, and it is an education that has some depth and can get quite involved and amazing when a student of riding investigates it properly, which is the point of my program. Okay, here's another example and it might not make sense to you if you haven't gone through the education yet, but from the opening and bearing actions of the reins, those simple rein actions, the horse learns everything he needs to know about a displaceable forehand. The actions of the legs will follow. And finally, he will learn to respond to various combinations of actions. This is why the early lessons all matter. And the clarity of the early lessons matter, because that is the basis that he learns from. So in this program, we have a rideability checklist that's derived from this text that we're using. And it's just a list of things that the horse and rider know how to do. And it does go in order. If you would like a copy of that rideability checklist, get a hold of me by email and I will give it to you. Okay, so this law of association of sensations, this is our tool. And the main ideas I wanted to get through in this session is that the basis kernel, little germ seed ideas right at the beginning are very important. So even how a horse understands to be led, I test that out every horse I deal with. What does he know about being led? Because if he doesn't know that very properly, there's probably other gaps that we'll need to fill in. And we'll want to get these basis ideas cleared up before trying to proceed. Because horses aren't problems to solve. Most people are they run into problems, but the problems happened at the beginning. They happened in the leading or the first introduction to the opening rein, or no introduction to the opening rein. And so then you get these people fixing problems, but the problem isn't a problem. It's just an education gap. And if you just run through the curriculum and you know, like a little checklist, you know this, or you know, oh, your little squeaky wheel here on this item, let's clear this up. And then everything that follows that will be far easier. And the other thing I want you guys to really accept is that the curriculum of a horse's education is not all, it's not feeling and intuition and guesswork. There is a set of information that they can learn. And I really hope that you love horses enough to treat them as the intellectual creatures that they are. They can understand.